Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's web session. Super excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. I know folks are still coming into the virtual room, and you may even be listening to this on a recording in some future event. This will be made available. But why are we here? We're here to have a dynamic discussion all around local service ads, LSAs, right? So I'm really excited to be part of this panel, but humbled as well because these fine folks are the experts. I'm Paul Bamert. I'm part of Case Status. We're constantly trying to protagonize conversations that are value add in a thought leadership angle. And this is an awesome partnership with our friends at Clixsy and Fireproof. So I will quickly say hello to Corey, Will, and Mike, if you guys want to go in that order and say hello to our audience out there. Any quick introduction that you want to share as well, and then we'll move into some of the housekeeping and get right into it. Corey?
Yeah, my name is Corey Vandenberg, one of the co-founders of Clixsy. Thrilled to be here. Really excited to jump in and give you guys some real meat and potatoes on local service ads.
Love it.
And I'm Will Pettet. I'm Will Pettet, co-founder. I am the meat of the potatoes, and these glasses aren't real.
I'm Mike Morse, founder of the Mike Morse Law Firm. I wrote a book called Fireproof with John Knockhazel. And these glasses are real.
Love it.
There we go.
Love it. Oh, I guess I'm the parsley on this one, Will. So with that said, let's dive in. Got a lot of great discussion to go. Housekeeping. We're using a platform. You're hearing us in broadcast, but we want this to be interactive. I've got some polls queued up to where we'll get some, information coming from the audience. We also have the questions tab, so use that to throw a question. I will be keeping an eye on it. I'm not the expert here, but I'll try to pose those questions because if one of you is asking it, chances are there's other folks out in the audience that are thinking it as well. So we'll try to find a good spot there. We do have time saved at the end, so if we don't get to that question, we'll either get it answered at the end or we will make sure to follow up one-on-one. With that said, I'm going to turn the mic over to our friends at Clixsy. Before we do, I want to put up our first poll just to sort of see where folks are at with LSA. So Will and Corey, before you jump in, we'll just throw this poll in and see what folks have, and you can kind of use this to your angling of who's in the audience. So go to your polls tab to the audience. You should see a poll that's asking, where are you on your LSA journey? There's a few multiple choice questions there. Maybe you're using it and very happy with the results. Maybe you're using it and not sure what the results are. You're using it and you hate the results. Not using it, but planning to use it this year, and not using it and want to learn more, and that's why you're here. So we've got 5, we think, encompassing questions out there, and I'm going to start looking at how our votes coming. So Corey and Will and Mike, I know you can't see this.
Happy and hate are at tie. Oh, no, they're not.
Yeah, you see it real time. So we've got using and not sure of the results is 50%, right? Using and very happy with the results, and using and hate my results are a close tie for second, right? You see that real time. So keep it coming in. But yeah, Corey, Will, turn it over to you. Use a little bit of that to your benefit.
No, that's very helpful. It's good to see kind of a sample of the experiences everybody's having. Appreciate everyone joining. I'm going to try to stick to some very actionable topics. And so I may be skipping some of my own slides, but not to worry. Don't feel like you got to take notes or take screenshots or anything, because we'll be providing these at the end of the presentation. So you'll be able to see the recording, you'll have the slides, and be able to go back and see if there was anything you missed or that you wanted to cover. So the slide here is our unique selling proposition. This is what we have on our website. It's what we tell everybody is that we do one thing. We take market share from competitors. And today we're going to be talking about how we do that specifically in the context of local service ads. Quickly, part of Clixsy's philosophy on what we do for our clients is what we call full coverage. And what we mean by that is, if Google gives you real estate on the first page of its search engine, we want to take a spot. And so what we seek is to make sure that our clients are showing up in every single piece of real estate that's available to them. Today, obviously, we're going to be talking about this piece of real estate, specifically local service ads. And I show this primarily to show Mike's face because he's the best looking of the bunch here, but also to show you that this is distinct from some of these other placements, such as the map pack or the organic rankings. All right. We wrote a book. It's really good. It's about local service ads. We can talk about that later. I don't want to get too hung up on the formalities. So if you've had any of these questions on the screen, and it looks like about 50% of you are unsure whether you're getting good results or not, and hate my results is now in second place with 27%. So it sounds like this is going to land for a lot of you. Well, hopefully today, a lot of what we're going to say will clear some of these things up and help you get a direction that's going to be able to get you past the uncertainty and know exactly what you can do to make a difference. Today, we're going to be talking about the foundational principles that make local service ads work: responsiveness, reviews, and prominence. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first segment. I'm going to be talking about the principle of responsiveness with some very specific tactics. Then we'll move into the other two once I'm done. This is an email which you can read later when you get the slides. It's from Google, and it talks about how they recently laid off over 12,000 employees. This was all primarily in Google Ads. And so there's a lot of implications. And one of those is that the local service ads has gone largely without support, except for a few select agencies who have their highest tier of support that's called managed partner access. And Clixsy has been fortunate to be able to have been brought into that program. It's an invite-only program, and so it's afforded us some more visibility into the inner workings of this platform. All right, so
some secrets, which are an NDA, by the way, Corey. You forgot that important point.
There's actually a slide. You're
Sorry,
right.
Sharing that.
There is
I
a
jumped
slide
to it.
coming up.
Sorry, I was reading the poll. Darn it.
Yeah, that's right. So when it comes to talking about responsiveness, the big picture here is we're talking about your ability to answer calls quickly and respond to messages quickly. Now that might seem really, really plain on its face. Every one of us can easily conceive of what it means to answer a call quickly. However, when you get looking into the back end of Google's data, you quickly see a completely different story. How they define responsiveness is what matters. And regardless, we can all look at our own phone logs and say, what more could I have done? But the game is what the game is. We have to still try to play within the boundaries that they've set. So I want to talk about an often misunderstood aspect of local service ads, and that's missed calls. When you log into your own native Google dashboard to look at your local service ads, you're probably familiar with having looked at a particular lead. And I think I have a slide here. No, sorry, it looks like I missed that. So you've probably all looked into an individual lead, and you've seen at the very bottom of the lead, it'll have a little red bounce arrow, and it says missed call. Well, just a quick story on that. The first few times that I pointed this out to clients, and I said, the reason your local service ads aren't performing at their optimal is because you've missed calls. And of course, every owner, Mike, what's going to happen if Jan or Trudy comes and tells you that they missed calls?
They're not going to be happy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I brought it up to an owner, I quickly realized that I better have my own business figured out, because if I'm going to report this to an owner, I might be jeopardizing somebody's job. So I started looking into, well, how is it that we can trace end to end when Google is reporting that there's a missed call? And this is where I discovered something that kind of floored me. And that is that when you get on the backside of Google's data, there's no such thing as a missed call. They don't have a designation within their API that defines a missed call. Rather, what they see is either a connected call or a not connected call. That's how they define it. So we spent some time looking into this, and what we found is that there's this little score that you see right here on this. This is a dashboard that we build for our clients, and you can see it says phone responses 0.64. That right there is effectively a quality score for your local service ad campaign. And you can only see this by tapping into the data that comes from Google's API. Well, what we figured out is that Google is measuring your responsiveness by dividing the number of connected calls by the total number of calls. And whatever that number is ends up coming out to this phone lead response score. So naturally, the next question I had was, well, what constitutes a connected call? As I was looking into all these different accounts, I was finding that oftentimes when we would look at the individual calls, we'd find that a call that was under 30 seconds was being listed as not connected. And so that's how we came up with the advice that we've been giving to clients, that you should be optimizing for calls over 30 seconds and then deal with the unqualified leads through the dispute process. I wish I could spend more time on that, but I don't have enough within this presentation. So if you have more questions about that, feel free to reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to answer questions about your specific accounts. One other tactic that we've learned besides optimizing for calls over 30 seconds is I was watching a YouTube video and there was this guy who was a plumber, and he said, you know what I've been doing is I go into the app for local service ads and I call back all of my leads. This was a big light bulb moment for me, because our rep within LSA had told us, well, make sure clients are calling back missed calls. And for weeks, it just ate at me because I couldn't figure out, despite all my conspiracy thoughts about Google and what they have access to, I couldn't figure out how they might know that a client picked up their phone and called a missed call back. And then when I saw this plumber talking about what he was doing, that was my light bulb. I went, oh my gosh, Google's engineers built this app and they think every single person who's using LSA is using the app. And so to them, that made perfect sense to say, call everybody back, because by default, they think you're going to do this. So what you need to do is there's in the slides, we've got a link to a video tutorial that we put together that shows you how to go download the app and what the best practices are so that you can start implementing this. I had a law firm in Baton Rouge who implemented this tactic right here, and they went from 60 calls a month to 90 calls a month within 30 days, just doing this alone. So I've seen direct impact from this particular tactic. All right, last tip on responsiveness. Message leads are a benefit to your account. You should have them on. However, for the last, up until mid 2023, I was always fearful of turning these on for a client, because I was almost certain what would end up happening is they'd miss a chat, or they would delay answering the chat until they could get around to it. And as a result, their responsiveness score would go down and all that effort would be for naught. So I ended up talking with a chat provider, Ted Betancourt from Jubo Leads. And I said, I have this problem. I explained to him why I was fearful to turn on message leads. And he just said, you know what, let me take a stab at it and see if I can build a custom bridge that will allow us to respond to those LSA leads immediately. And when I say the results were just mind-boggling, I'm not exaggerating. Here's our client out of New York, Ross Salino, and this message that you see on his local service ads, if you can go see this. This is the case right now, that his LSAs went from saying typically replies in 24 hours to typically replies in a few minutes, and that was accomplished within about a month. And since then, we've seen about a 20% increase in leads across all of his accounts as a result. So it's helped the response score, it's helped account performance, and they're getting more leads because of it. And so definitely turn on leads or message leads, but make sure that you've got a way to answer them immediately. So just as a recap, you want to be answering calls within 30 seconds or less, and then you want to optimize for keeping them on for 30 seconds or more. And then we've got a guide video that we can provide you that shows you how to do disputes. I talked in the landing page and some of the emails that I sent out about AI. Well, Google is listening to these calls using AI. So in order to dispute effectively, you want to make sure that you are optimizing what your intake team says. For example, what you don't want to do is on a disqualified lead through LSA, you don't want to be saying, let me check with one of the attorneys and I'll get back to you. You will not win that dispute because the AI is going to listen to it. They're going to see that you took the lead because it was at least qualified enough to ask the lawyer, and then you're not going to win your dispute. So you want to have, and we'll actually be putting together a guide on this. We don't have it finished yet, but we'll give you some specific language that you can train your intake team to use. And then lastly, respond to all your missed calls using the app and respond to message leads, turn them on, and then make sure that you're responding to them immediately, and you will have a stellar response score inside your account. All right.
Corey,
Next.
I've got a couple interjections before we transition into my piece and then Mike's piece, if you don't mind. A question that came in, you closed on the app. Just go back to see your last point there. But Lance asked, how do you get around the poor functionality of the LSA app? So I don't know if there's a quick response to that.
Yeah. So I don't know what you mean specifically by poor functionality, but I know one bug with the app is that you can't have multiple accounts that you log into under the same login. Otherwise, one bug is that it will default to one of those accounts randomly, and you can't choose, and there's no drop down to toggle between accounts. So what we've had to do in that case is we've had clients who actually go and create what I call a bat phone. They just get an individual iPhone or Android phone for LSAs, and somebody in their intake team has that bat phone. And so what you want to do is on that phone, you are logged into one LSA account, and that's the way that you can get around that particular poor functionality. The other, I'd have to know more specifically what else you're seeing besides that bug.
Awesome. Yeah, another person just comments, when we call back using the app, the call comes from the cell phone number the app is installed on. So if the lead person doesn't answer, they call back the cell phone number, not a track number, right? So I think that's one of the issues as well.
Chrissy, also, I see Chrissy's question that calling back from the app uses the cell phone number of the individual. And that's another reason why we've had clients who set up their bat phone. Yeah. Because if you put it on an employee's phone, you're going to be exposing their phone number.
Awesome. Real quick, I put another poll in there. So again, when we go back to poll number 1, Corey, I think 95% of our audience is using LSAs, right? So your 2.0, I think, lands that these are folks that are familiar with it. It's about being better in it, incrementally better. So again, some really cool highlights. I put another poll out there, which is kind of what you're spending on LSAs per month. Because again, Corey, I think you bring a lot of good ideas to bear. Ultimately, we want to have those calls, have those leads turn into legitimate opportunities. But we also want to make sure that spend, right? We spent that money to get that local service ad to pop up, to get that click, right? So I'm kind of curious, if you check out your polls tab, there's another one just asking in general sort of how much you're spending. Kind of got 3 options, just kind of a less than 1,000 to 10,000 and over 10,000. Curious what folks have out there. And again, might be determined by the size of your firm, but getting some good distribution here.
I would say that one of the biggest problems that I've seen with most firms is LSA has a problem scaling. Yeah. So you can push to a certain point. I don't think I've ever seen an LSA account that has spent more than about $50,000 a month. That seems to be right around the highest I've ever seen. And for whatever reason, I don't see a lot of correlation between the bids and the budgets and the end result. It seems to me that there's some invisible constraints that we don't really get to see what they are or why.
Yeah. That said, $10,000 a month, right? Not a trivial spend for any firm, right? I mean, that is program spend at its best. We want those dollars to go the right place and to be effective. So awesome. I think the question queue is caught up at the moment, Corey, and maybe we transition at this point.
Yeah. So reviews is obviously a significant part of how LSA's algorithm works. And so when we got talking with you gentlemen in Miami, I saw that you guys really have something special as it relates to getting more reviews at exactly the right time, and I felt like that could really help boost LSA performance.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and I'd love to step in there and talk a little bit about those reviews, right? And really what we're talking about is happy consumer clients, right? So I'll dive in, sort of talk a little bit about, why case status, why we talk a little bit about these types of things, right? We're all about client engagement. But before we do, just to segue, Corey, on some of the Google, stated LSA ranking factors, right? So to me, again, similar to Corey, we'll have all this for you afterward, but what stands out is number 2, right? Reviews, the score, the number of reviews. And we all know this, right? I mean, every time I shop on Amazon and I have something very generic, the number of reviews and the score are what matter. And if it's a little bit pricier, I go with that, right? It doesn't matter. It is keen to how we as consumers operate out there. It's a little bit democratic, and we like to know that others, even though we don't know them, are saying things that are in line with our expectations of what we want, right? So it's at the top. The next thing I'll sort of talk about here is some of the studies that we do on these same consumers. So I'm going to go through this idea, and this is where our philosophy here at Case Status, which is if you want to have a good review, there's a path to get there. There's a couple of chain links, 3 chain links as I spell it out, to get to that end review. And it's this idea of engaging your client, measuring where you are with them, right? Their perception, because perception is reality, and then asking for the review. So I'm gonna walk us through that. But before we do, I always talk about being a consumer whisperer. I'm not going to go through all these charts here, but I love this data because what it tells us is in the upper left, this is from Zendesk, a lot of data points that talk about how we as consumers want to self-serve. The 2 charts to the right, 2 different sources, but it gets back to some of the ideas. Corey, you were showing the app. There's a reason why there are apps out there. That is where the consumer is going. They're spending more time on their smartphone, 5 hours a day almost, and 93% of that time is spent in apps. Understanding that is where we're going to talk a little bit about the engagement. Another thing to understand on the lower left, a couple of sources in Inc. magazine and the White House Office of Consumer Affairs is negative experience people. You always hear it, right? Negative people will get a lot more mobilized than happy people, right? And it is, a 2, a 3, a 4x difference between that. Unhappy people get loud 4 to 5 times more than happy people, right? And then finally, how's the decision made? And again, Mike, I look forward to seeing if you agree with some of these data points for your own practice, but we find that the decision to hire often comes from where you stand on reviews and referrals. And we've got a couple of Clio's, data points from their client trends report. So let me just quickly go through this idea of engage, measure, and ask that ultimately gets you to those reviews. So the number 1 bar complaint, we talk about it time and again. I don't know what's going on in my case. I don't hear from my attorney. It's communication. It's just understanding what's going on. The takeaway here for you, what you can put into play in 2024 is just try to meet your clients where they expect to be met by their favorite brands. This is what's going on today. This slide is meant to be chaotic. We have phone, we have text, we have email, we might have video conferencing, we might even still have fax. The more channels that we give to, let it up to them to come to us, it gets crazy, right? The chaos is there and your staff have to suffer through that. So start thinking about how you consolidate comms. Don't just add another portal to the mix. Get a solution that consolidates these channels and brings it to their smartphone, but consolidates for your staff and gets away from having 5, 6, 7 channels that they have to communicate in their own right, right? When you do that, and we believe here at Case Status, we've got the data to show not only what we see in the research, but what we're doing is apps are forever when they get shit done. Excuse my French. I love it though. Apps will get stuff done. I show on my left-hand side what's on my phone, things that I love. But when you think about legal cases, qualitatively, regardless of what practice area you're in, there's a lot on the line emotionally, anxiety-wise. But even quantitatively on the right-hand side, when we think about workers' comp, PI, Social Security disability, the financial impacts are huge, right? So you got emotion, you got anxiety, you got financial. There's nothing more important than that person's case. So I share an example. We use an app. We get very high engagement, not just adoption, but engagement, back and forth, checklists, appointments, treatment, all funneling into the best case management solutions out there. That's how we meet how we help our firms meet their clients where they're at. Look to do the same thing. That's the first thing. If you meet them where they're at, they're more likely to be happy and have a good experience with your firm. So in my 3-part series 2, engaging is one thing, right? Take steps in action regardless of how you do it. The second is measure it, right? Ask the question. So 50% of law firms out there measure satisfaction, and those that do only do it one time at the end. So I've actually got another poll I want to put out there for folks. Let's see if I can find it here. Publish the poll. First question is, when do you measure client satisfaction today? And that's probably the second question, which is, nope, that's the question. I'm curious if you do. If you don't do it, that's your third option. If you do it one time at the end of the case, that's the middle option. And the top option is multiple times throughout the whole case. So as you come in, I was kind of curious to see what we have at the end of the case is dominating. But several of you are doing multiple times throughout the case. That's awesome. I've got a couple of folks that don't do it. That's great. You should ask, you should know what's going on in your client's head, right? Don't just think about how you're feeling about the relationship. Ask them. It's a scary question to ask, but if you build out some of these playbooks, it'll make it easier as you go through. The takeaway is you can only manage what you measure. And for those of you that are doing it multiple times, great. Those of you that are doing it at least once is great as well. A little bit of information we'll leave you. There's only one question to ask, so it's super simple. How likely are you to recommend me to friends, family, colleague, right? And ask it as frequent as often, but don't do it more than 2 times a month, right? Because then you're peppering them with too many questions. It does 2 things for your firm. On the individual level, you can track Paul Bamert, right? July, he was a little bit low, but I've rebuilt that rapport, that trust. He's on the up and up. He's actually a stronger 8 than he would have been otherwise, right? On a scale of 1 to 10. But at the firm level, you can also use Net Promoter Score. How am I doing for the firm, right? And you're taking all of your promoters, which are 9s and 10s, and you're subtracting out your detractors. So measure that as well as you get that information back. For all of those folks out there, 90% are measuring. That's good. The other thing I leave you with is have a playbook. Don't run away from the 6. The 6 is awesome. It's the check engine light. It'll give you a heads up that you can do some things to turn them around. And data shows that the 9s that come out of being lower scores are actually stronger. And the highest scores is where we come back to the ask for the review, ask for the referral. These happy clients are one of your best assets. And they're not just the best asset today. They're a best asset in perpetuity. You can come back 3 or 4 years from now, if you're still engaging with them, to get a referral and a review. So example, use your existing tech, right? When the stage is complete, ask the question. You can use a Survey Monkey. You can use Typeform. Get it out there. Get it quantified. Get your team using it. Case status example, we automate the whole journey for you. When the stage is done, we can put the question out there. We can track it at the individual level. We can track it at the firm level. Last step, engage, measure, and ask is to ask. You now know who your 9s and 10s are. Those are the ones that you want to mobilize. And the quick point at the chart on the left, I said it 4 or 5 times, your detractors are likely to talk bad about you in the marketplace than your promoters. But if you ask your promoters to leave you a review, they'll do it, right? 80% of them will actually leave you a review. And if you pick the ones that have a Gmail account, chances are they'll just do it in a matter of moments because they don't have to log in or anything. So again, examples on the left, you can do this as you leave. If you ask the question, you get it back. You can send emails, you can do text, you can ask for that review however you see fit. Again, in our example, we seek to automate that. So keep that in mind as we talk about LSA and getting that expense, or not expense, but that program spend that we're all spending to make those dollars turn into calls, turn into leads, right? Reviews, number 2 level of what impacts those LSA rankings. And that's going to be pretty important to ultimately get to this social proof of getting those high scores. So I think that's my piece. I hope that makes sense in building to it. I don't know, Corey, if you've been keeping an eye on the questions. I see a few have popped in.
We've responded to a couple of them, Will and I, but I noticed that like only that person is going to see our response. So
yeah. Anything you want to call out based on what you saw there, or should we continue and let folks hear from...
Matt Russell asked how many people are employing gating on their reviews. So if you don't know, gating is just a reference to these different tech platforms like Podium and Birdeye, where it'll ask a question, and depending on the response, it'll decide whether or not to then send that person a review link. Google came out with some guidance about this a few years ago, and I want to say it was in 2019. Most people, the consensus is that was aimed largely at Birdeye and Podium because they were the 2 largest providers. Now, almost every review platform has gating. You just have to use informed consent, click a box and say, yeah, I want to do that. I've never seen Google enforce it. I'm not aware of a single instance where they did. I would say that if you've got a way to measure sentiment, something where you're doing the net promoter score or something of that nature, I think you're fine. I don't think that you are in grave danger of like having your GBP suspended, if that's the major concern.
Awesome. Makes sense. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you answering those on the side. I'll take a scan as well. But Mike, I appreciate you listening to some of us service providers out there. You're obviously the real life practitioner and putting a lot of this to bear for your firm. So I'll turn the mic over to you. Excited to hear what you see in the real world and what advice you have for our audience members.
Thanks, Paul. So Corey and Will told me I had to get a lot of reviews to make all this stuff work. So as we do in our firm and with our Fireproof clients, we set up goals and we set up procedures and processes to get reviews. It wasn't, an afterthought. It's not haphazard. There's absolute protocols and processes and goals in place for reviews. Since we've been doing that for the last couple of years, we've seen, I think we have 5 different locations. One of our locations has, you guys can tell me, I don't have that data, over 3,500.
Over 3,000
reviews. Yeah. And then the other ones are slowly building hundreds and hundreds of reviews. We have it on a carousel system that when somebody gives a review, it gives it to the next one and the next one and the next one. So they all kind of get reviews. And I think you guys have some slides for me.
Do you want me to move those for you?
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, no problem.
So, all right. So move that past that. All right. So the first thing I want to say is, we get reviews all different types of ways. Shockingly, a large percentage of our reviews come at the intake phone call, which doesn't make a whole bunch of sense because we haven't done a whole lot of work for the client yet, but we ask. And the person answering the phone who gives information say, hey, would you mind giving a review on how this call went today? I don't know the exact percentage that we get, but I know we get them every single day from intake. We also get them throughout the case. And of course, at the end of the case, when you're giving the people their money or there's a final disposition, you're giving them some swag, you sit down with them, and of course, you get reviews then. But a large bulk of our reviews come during our charitable, philanthropic community events. And at our firm here in Michigan, we do a lot of them. The slide that you're looking at is Project Backpack. During our event last year, which was, I think, a 2 or 3 hour event, we got 300 plus 5-star Google reviews. We give out free backpacks to the kids. We've given out over 300,000 in Detroit. I'm going to give my program a little plug. Originally, we started offering this to our Fireproof clients so they would do backpack events in their town. We didn't charge for it. We gave them the logos for free. There's more logos than what you see here. We have a whole playbook on how to give away free backpacks. And we also give you a free link to order them at our cost, which is a good cost because we order over 30,000 a year. So if you're interested in that, send me an email, mike@855mikewins.com. I'll send you the deck. I've seen some people on this call here actually who do the backpacks, but I think we're in 13 or 14 cities now. Again, I make no money. I give it all for free just because I want the kids of the country to get these who need them. It's a fabulous program. It's very easy to set up. I highly recommend it. And of course, we get people like your firm, people like the backpacks. I think there's a misnomer that they have to like your legal work to give you a 5-star review. They could like my shirt. They could like my hair. They could like the fact that they got a backpack today. Doesn't really matter. Next slide, Corey, please. We also do 2 pet adoption events a year. We pay to gather a bunch of vendors here in our parking lot at the firm, and we get hundreds of Google reviews. Looks like in 2023 we had 160. We did 2 of these last year, and we do 2 a year. I love pets. It's a simple, I'm not gonna say simple, but it's a thing that anybody can do. And if you are a dog or cat lover, highly recommend a Meet Your Best Friend at the law firm. We also have some cute commercials, Meet Your Best Friend at the Paw firm, PAW, and we play off that. And we also do, what's the next one? We also do a free ride share at the end of the year. And what we do is, during these events, when people register for the dog event, when people register for the backpack event, when people register for the free ride home, we gather their information. We ask them for a review. We ask it multiple ways and at multiple times during all aspects of it. And if they don't leave one, we ask at the end of the event 1 or 2 times. And hopefully a percentage appreciates what we're doing for the community and for them, and giving us a review. And we do it via text and email. And we have ambassadors on the ground during all the events, walking around asking for reviews. You could have contests, you could have giveaways, but anything you can do to become loved by your community, the community will support you and give you reviews.
Mike, real quick, can I ask you a question, Mike? Because I think that we're touching on the fact of here's a strategy for generating reviews. You've given them an email to get the deck and everything, but this is one activity that has multiple benefits, and I know you're very passionate about it. Can we just talk just for a second on the other benefits? I know I see it on the slides back here with the social media and everything, but this is so brilliant, and I wish other firms would really adopt and take this serious for the impact that it does have.
It's funny you say that. Well, we coach 50 or 60 law firms. We get together twice a year and we talk about things that are working, things that aren't working. And there's so many firms across America that aren't taking advantage of this stuff, which is basically low-hanging fruit. And I spend a lot of time with law firm owners talking about this stuff and how to become what we call fireproof, right? If you're fireproof in your community, you don't have to worry about big, bad, mean, ugly law firms coming into your town from other states who don't care about your community, because they clearly don't care about your community. And the community, I believe, when they see a big billboard They don't know who those people are. They know me. They know my firm. They know my mom. They know I love dogs and cats. They know I love kids. And it's not fake. And I've been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
And of course, I see here, yes, social media engagement. Every time we do an event, we have weeks of social media content. We're not shy for asking for reviews. We're not, we are engaging our community, and our community wants to support us and love us back, quite frankly. And I've seen very few firms in this country spending real energy. I see a quick event here and there. I see a fake 200 backpacks here and there. But when you stand up and give adopt out and pay for adoptions for 160 animals, you give out 30,000 backpacks for 10 years in a row. It's making a commitment to your community. I believe communities around this country know bullshit when they see it or hear it. So when these firms come in from Florida and other states and say, "Oh, we're the best, we're the biggest, call us," I think most cities die because they're not truly connecting. They're not here. They're not doing anything. They're throwing up billboards. They don't know the courts. They don't have employees in the city or the state. And the people need to know that. And if you got to run a commercial or a billboard or social media talking about what's real and what isn't real, I think they can smell real and they can smell bullshit. Yeah. And so these things help. These things help you become fireproof. And if you're committed to your town, your city, multiple locations, people will back you. I can't tell you hundreds of times a year, people come up to me and say, "Hopefully I'll never need a lawyer, but if I do, I'm calling you." Why did you call me? You gave my grandbaby a backpack 5 years ago. I got a dog from your event. How's that dog doing? Show me pictures. It's ingrained in the community, and it's just not fake. I mean, I go to these events, the dog events especially. I'm crying most of the day watching 160 new families being made right in front of my eyes. It's one of the most beautiful things of the year. Backpacks, of course, are great. Everything, I'm not doing. I get ideas brought to me all the time. How about this? How about that? And I'm just like, that's not a big enough impact. That doesn't move the needle for my heart. And you just got to go inside and what's important to you. These things may not sound important to somebody on this call, but find something that's important to you. But, make sure it's more than, I'm not going to throw somebody under the bus because I've heard of other programs that I just don't get. But make a big splash, make a big impact, consider some of the things that I've talked about. And of course, at the end of the day, you're going to end up getting more cases, but that's not why you do it. If you do any of these things to get more cases, you won't get more cases because the people will smell through it. I get people calling me all the time, "Michael, I want to do backpacks. How many cases extra am I going to get a year if I do 10,000 backpacks?" I say, "I'm not helping you get back. I'm not helping you do this." That's not the right question. Right. The right question is, how do I give as many kids as possible backpacks in my community? That's it. We don't track it. We don't have a drop down on our intake. "Oh, they called us because of backpacks." That to me won't work. And I won't support that. I won't participate in that.
And Mike, just to intersect, I mean, I've had several decades with a tech company that worked with nonprofits. So to me, part of your guidance is speak from the heart, choose it. So backpacks, animals, I mean, another attorney in another market, it's their passion, right? Take your passion and get behind that for the community, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the message is to have it be part of their heart and soul in that community. Fair?
For sure.
Yeah.
Whenever I go into town to see a client, Will and I traveled to Detroit to go attend Mike's Fireproof conference. And I always make it a practice to ask my Uber driver without telling him why I'm there. Like, "Hey, you know this guy here?" And I pointed at one of Mike's billboards. Yep. And I can tell you firsthand as a witness, exactly what Mike's saying is true. Every single one of those Uber drivers was like, "Oh man, that guy's awesome," and would tell me some story about some connection that they had.
Yeah.
That's so. Well, I would.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I would say this: if anything on this call, take this serious. If you're going to do one thing, reach out to Mike, implement this. Like, just seriously take this to heart and do it the right way. Corey, do you want to ask Mike some of these questions that have pulled up?
Yeah, for sure. So Mike, Brittany Lawson asked if you could elaborate about getting reviews at intake. Do you have recommendations for that practice or what to say?
So, yeah, I do. And there's some controversial ways. It depends on your state, depends on your ethics rules. It depends on lots of things. We just ask for it. At the end of the call, are you satisfied with this call today? Have all your questions been answered? Yes. Well, would you mind leaving us a 5-star review today if I sent you a link right now? I know that there are firms out there that'll say, for every 5-star review we get, my boss donates money to the Michigan Humane Society or other things. I don't think we do that anymore, but you can experiment with those things. Certain states you can do that. It's just a genuine asking for the referral, and shockingly, if people are feeling the love at the beginning of the case, they'll give it. If they don't, maybe they do it in the middle of the case. One thing that's not real easy that I asked my team this week, and maybe some genius here will figure this out, but there's not a really great way to track if a client gave a review, especially with multiple LSAs and multiple locations, right? So that's a hard thing at the end of the case to know if somebody gave a review, especially when you have over 4,500 reviews over 5 locations. That's a side note that we haven't figured out.
It's Mike, to your point, attribution. There is a metadata trail that can be followed. We're discussing that as well, right? Because if you know where you've asked for it and you know the uniqueness of that individual, there is a way to potentially pull that together. Now, again, Google's always changing the game, right? If the API allows us to connect those dots, it doesn't necessarily mean it will be there in perpetuity. So it's always a moving target with some of that, but you're exactly right. That is something that those of us on the tech side are definitely looking at, the attribution.
Funny that you mention it. Some genius.
We built a scraper.
Yep. We are in the middle we have a beta software that is pulling through the Google Business Profile API. So here's your GBP. We are pulling in those reviews every single day. The primary reason we did it is because we constantly had clients saying, hey, I had a legitimate review and Google took it down. And so we wanted to be able to not only catch those and get a copy of it, but also programmatically submit it to Google for reinstatement. But we now also have the additional benefit of being able to track it end to end.
That's awesome.
That is great. Any other questions?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, any other questions, I said.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. I think I can summarize because a few of them hit on the case status side, and I'll just make one quick observation, Mike. I love the community centricity of what you're doing, right? Because I always say that every time I meet, somebody in your line of work. I hope I never, ever have to hire you, right? And so what I was talking about in our piece is happy clients and mobilizing them. You're mobilizing your happy clients before they ever become clients, right? And you have to delight them in some way, shape, or form, but your community, right? Again, if you do it from the heart, I think that's a really awesome connection of this before, during, and after. You're really figuring out the before part. I mean, you're mastering it. It's awesome. And I do agree with Will. That's a great takeaway. The during and the after, a couple of the questions get into that. I mean, again, you not only can you ask for the review before they've ever been a client, but long after they've been a client as well, right? So this idea of the case is closed and somebody had a good, outcome, as long as you maintain communications with them, and maybe it's part of these events, right? Maybe you invite your happy clients to these events as well. Maybe they get a little bit of a special, participation role or something like that. I don't know. But the idea of automating communications in perpetuity, the questions that are coming in, those are the types of things we try to do, because again, I think the likes of Mike and others can ask for a review at any point down the road, whether it's related to the community events or it's related to the outcome of that case, long after that case is closed. So kind of a cool idea of it's all around the community, right? The community's there. before, during, and after. And I think really focusing on that is key.
I think you just got to be creative. I mean, and be innovative and come up with things that I haven't even thought of here. Of course, at our front desk, we have the Q codes. What do you call those things? Where they could just put their phone. QR codes where they could just put their phone on it. Yep. We have 10 different platforms, from Yelp to Google to whatever else they're getting. I mean, and they can give up to 5, if we have 5 different Google accounts, they can give 5 different reviews if they really love you. Yeah. I mean, just be innovative, be thoughtful, ask. And I think everybody's learned this by now, but I feel like I just want to say this. Get it while they're in your office if you can. If they say, oh, I'll do it at home, they're not going to do it at home. If they say they'll do it later, they won't. Literally, there's half the time they'll hand me their phone and say, will you help me do it? And I just pull it up and I say, okay, here it is. Hit how many stars you want to give me and what you want to say, because people are not all that tech savvy. Sometimes it's a little confusing to find it. Right. But we do everything in our power to get the reviews. And when we get a negative review, we do everything in our power to call the person and make it right, which we're not talking about today, but it's definitely, my team has figured out that one star review equals 20 5-star reviews. I'm not sure why the math works that way. I'm not a mathematician, but it takes 20 5-star reviews to get rid of a 1-star effect on your profile. So obviously do everything in your power to keep your clients happy and avoid those 1 stars as well.
Yep, absolutely. So Paul, the meat part of this section will finish this off. How about that?
Yeah. Bring us home. I know we've got a couple of places where people can, follow up, but I want to make sure you bring us home on these hot closing topics.
Okay, so I'm gonna recap this because we're gonna get into prominence in a second, and I'm happy that some of the people have left because I'm gonna share some ninja tactics that won't be recorded. So those that have left, you missed out. So let's just end this on the review side here for the LSA, for your Google business profiles, a minimum of 5 to get it rocking and rolling. Mike talked about the negative reviews and the impact that it can have on conversions. When people actually find you online or offline, they're going to search your business and see and unconsciously look for a reason not to do business with you. So if you have that negative review sitting there, it's going to hurt your conversions, getting them to call you. For the SEO and LSA side of things, that negative review will have an impact in sandboxing your LSA for about 61 days. So what can you do if you do get a negative review? Try to dispute it, especially if it's on your Google business profile. There's a way to dispute it. Don't reply to it right away. Go through the process of flagging it. Do it multiple times, see if you can get it to be removed. In the meantime, solicit, get more reviews. Send your reviews to your Google business profile because that can sync to your LSA. In the event that you have a negative review, send a verified LSA review. That will help. But the key from our highest and best dedicated LSA rep, because we're one of those cool agencies that has one of those highest tier forms of support, is it's a total number, the total quantity, and the star rating. So you want to get up to that 4.9 to 5 star rating for your LSA, okay? So you have to look at how many reviews are being generated from in your market with your competitors. And that's why sometimes it's best to have one LSA account where you send all of your reviews to that one location so you can compete with those that are doing the same thing instead of having multiple LSA accounts. If you have no issues generating reviews, then have multiple LSA accounts and take advantage of as many first page spots or placements as possible. Okay, prominence. So what does this mean? This year, you guys will see in your LSA dashboards these 3 metrics. So you have the ad impressions, the number of times your LSA ad's been seen within that time frame, the total of the top impression rate. So that's how many times your ad was at the number 1 spot. Okay, that's how many times you were seen in search. And then over here, the absolute top impression rates on search. So out of all the times that you appeared in the SERP results, how many times were you number 1? What we found when our data, as far as trying to figure out this whole LSA mess and what are the metrics that you want to aspire to, Anything above a 50% absolute top impression rate is awesome. Just like the phone response score, anything above that actual 0.6% is a really good metric, okay? But it goes deeper into this. Google is actually treating LSA more like a traditional ad, where you have the quality score, you have the phone response score. That's one piece of the puzzle. This absolute top impression rate is another. When you click into it, it talks about prominence as a metric. The thing that you guys need to start to play with your profiles is photos. High res, unique photos. No stock images. Never put stock images on your Google business profile or in your LSA. Google hates stock images. That's why we're going with DuckDuckGo, okay? DuckDuckGo is the future. Just kidding, it's not. But we go back to here with the prominence. There's one thing that you guys may have not picked out. Click-through rate. Look at the bottom paragraph there, the click-through rate. So when you have your profile pic, go and look at your market, look at your competition. If everyone's profile pic is faced this way, flip your profile pic to the other way. Try to look at, as a user, all of the competitors and yourself lined up and see what draws your eye. Try to stand out. Continue to split test your profile images. You'll see Morgan do this. He actually does this right now. You'll see in LSA, there'll be one, his profile will be facing this way. A week later, it'll be flipped to another way. So you're constantly testing what position to draw the eye, to make you stand out, draw the eye and click you. And that's what's having an impact in supporting your LSA rankings. So you've got the reviews, a review of velocity, the star quality of those reviews. Now you have this thing with prominence, with the click-through rate, and the photos, the quality, the overall quality of your profile. So in the event that you have multiple LSA ad accounts, Google will only display the one in which they consider the highest profile quality. And so that's why it's sometimes to your advantage to just focus in on that one LSA account, have it completely filled out, get as many reviews as possible, and rock and roll. Okay, let's go through, talk about that. One last thing, there's two last things. The personal injury industry is going to get re-verified by Google. Google, you might even have received an email to your account from Google LSA, talking about re-verification. There's more information coming out, but you want to jump on this right away. What they're doing is they're cracking down on spam. They're cracking down on those that aren't actually attorneys. And so there's a two-step verification process that you're going to have to go through. And this is being rolled out, and it's being rolled out in stages. So there are certain states right now that are going through phase 1. Corey, do you remember what those are? I know it's Utah, Idaho. It's on the basically West Coast.
Utah's not in the first tranche, but Idaho was. And yeah, I've got a screenshot of it that I can,
okay, cool.
If people want, I can email the specs out.
But you'll want to jump on this right away, because most will miss this. And from our rep, he's saying that this is one of the biggest opportunities you have, one of the biggest competitive advantages you have to get ahead and jump your rankings. So for those accounts that aren't performing well, this is a big opportunity. And to speak one more thing about why you should do all these things we talked about, if you implement all of these action items and your response score is up, your message leads are just under a few minutes, you're getting quality reviews, 5-star reviews, this will actually lower your lead cost. So your cost per LSA lead will actually go down. Some of you might be at that $300 or $400 per LSA lead. You'll start to see that drop and be around the average of 180. Okay, final little tactic here. It's been kind of like a common tactic of agencies when it comes to LSA to flip on general lawyer leads. So if you're not getting personal injury leads, they say, hey, well, let's just turn on general lawyer leads to kickstart your campaign or your account, to reactivate it. Now, the challenge with that is general lawyer leads, you cannot dispute them. So you're going to eat that cost. The other challenge with that is right now how LSA is performing, you're going to just get more lawyer leads. So you're getting leads within a category, because you have personal injury as a category, general lawyer leads, and then you have like disability, labor law, and others. So what we did was we took that concept of we'll pay to have general lawyer leads to help jump our response score, get the account producing and showing Google that we're good contributors, right? But it never translated to more PI leads. So instead, I just had this crazy idea because I have 300 cell phones. I don't know why I do, but I have 300 cell phones with different profile accounts attached to them. I was like, why don't I just call? Why don't I secret shop our law firm and pretend like I'm a injured victim and just see how well their intake performs? So in doing so, making a few phone calls, and then, yes, they pay for those phone calls. We increase their phone response score. Now, all of a sudden, because I'm calling through the PI category, they're getting more PI calls. So take it for what it is. That's our secret. And there's other stuff there, but we won't get into it. And that's a cool
I'm going to get a
LSA rank
on
scanner. This is a cool LSA rank scanner that we built to understand how we're ranking for our LSA results as a problem. We did it to understand more data around LSA, but that's pretty cool. So anyway, Corey.
Boys, I need to jump. But I do want to say thank you for inviting me to this podcast. For the people who are remaining, if you want some good firms to work with, you can't do better than Case Status and Clixsy. Clixsy will give you the objective tools to compare yourself to the other firms in your neighborhood, in your community. I watch those things weekly. I know what we started at. I know what we're at today. I see the improvements. They have weekly calls with my team. Stay on top of your teams, whoever they are. But not every SEO or web designer is created equally. And these two organizations, in my opinion, are top notch. Thank you again, guys, though, for having me. If anybody, wants any advice or wants to do backpacks or talk about this stuff, Mike at 855mikewins.com. If you want to learn more about what we do, read the book Fireproof, join our community. That's what I got, boys.
Mike, appreciate it. Thanks to everybody
that's
joined. I know we went up against the time. Replay is coming. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.